We sing these amazing words in the fear of life. Sorry, can we get the fourth verse up? So just the final verse. How to kill a moment. Here we go. This is like worship leading 101. No guilt in life. No guilt in life.
I'm sure by now you've seen some of those worship fail videos, you know, like the one where the guy's playing drums and then all of a sudden the cross falls and smashes into his drum cage. Or maybe that one where like somebody's playing on their keyboard and then all of a sudden it crashes out from underneath them. That always makes me think, what would I do in that situation? When things go wrong while you're leading worship, what do you do? And make no mistake about it, if you lead worship for like even a year, I hate to break it to you, but something's going to go wrong at some point. We wish that things would go perfectly all the time, but what do you do when something goes wrong while you're leading worship? The first thing you need to do is ask yourself the question, did anybody notice? Now, of course, if you're watching one of those crazy worship fail videos, people noticed those things because they were crazy mistakes. But worship leaders make mistakes all the time that people don't even notice. For example, you sing the wrong word in a song, like one small wrong word. You said on instead of off or instead of the. People didn't notice that. And so it's okay. That's why we ask ourselves that. That doesn't make the problem okay. We're going to get to that in a second. But you don't need to address it to your church then. Which leads me to the second part of this point. First of all, ask yourself the question, did anyone notice? And then, if no one noticed, don't mention it. Because people make mistakes all the time that nobody notices. You know, you hit the wrong effects on your guitar and it was like, sounded slightly weird. Or, have you ever been here before? You had your eyes closed while you were singing and then you got too close to the microphone and you like bumped your mouth on it. I do that all the time. Nobody noticed that, so you don't have to address it. But if you answer the question, did anyone notice that this happened? And the answer is yes, then it might be necessary to address it. For example, if your keyboard smashes to the ground, it happens. Ideally it wouldn't, but it happens. Make a joke about it. Say something like, well, that was unexpected, you know? Just be a real human being. And even in your mistakes, people will appreciate that you are being authentic. So start by asking yourself the question, did anyone notice? If they didn't notice, move on to the next steps. If they did notice, it's okay to address it and say, this went wrong. Now, that's what you do in the moment, but there are some things that you need to do after the mistake is made, like after your service when you're sitting crying in your car alone because something horrible happened during the service. There's two things that you need to do in that situation. Number one, take note of the root cause of what caused the problem. Listen, sometimes things just happen. Sometimes a guitar string breaks, sometimes a keyboard stand breaks, sometimes somebody who built the cross and hung it on the wall didn't do a very good job and it comes crashing down on top of us. If the root problem is not something that you can fix, you'll move on to the next step. But if the root problem is something that you can fix, this is why we ask that question. What was the root problem? And then we deal with the root of the problem and make sure that it doesn't happen again. For example, you know those videos you've seen where somebody's playing the keyboard and then they hit a button and like this funky drum beat comes on? That has a problem at the root of it, and it's that there's a stupid button on a keyboard. I don't even know why they put it there. There's a stupid button on the keyboard that makes a stupid sound. So what is the fix for that problem? Well, you program the keyboard so it doesn't have that. That would be an example of fixing the root of the problem. You remove the ability to make that mistake anymore. That's a technical example, of course, but sometimes there's things that happen in our own head that cause problems as well. For example, not knowing a song well enough.
Forever, he will not turn and fall. The arms of angels, they're standing side.
If you're constantly forgetting lyrics, that's something that you can work on. That probably means that you need to learn the song better before you lead it on Sunday. So we don't wallow in self-pity, we just move on to fixing the problem, which means we prepare more in advance and we make sure that we put in more preparation time in learning the lyrics. So after the service, where you've made the mistake, ask yourself, what was the root of the problem? Is it something I can fix? And then fix it. After all of that, we need to do the most important thing, and that is to forgive yourself and move on. Listen, you've done all you can do. The mistake happened, you addressed it if it was necessary, and then you fixed it so it wouldn't happen again. There's nothing else that you can do but to forgive yourself and move on. In fact, maybe it wasn't even your fault. If it wasn't something that you can fix, then it wasn't your fault in the first place, so just move on, and it's not going to happen again because it was a one-time deal. I think all too often we are too critical of ourselves when we're leading worship, and we just are like, man, I sang the wrong note, I'm a horrible worship leader. No, we learn by making mistakes. You don't learn by doing everything right. You learn by making mistakes. So consider the mistake that was made a learning opportunity and a chance to improve in your worship leading. Worship fails are part of the process of worship leading. Until we get to heaven, we will never be a perfect worship leader. So enjoy the worship leading fail process and see it as a way to continually improve. It is, in and of itself, the process of worship leading sanctification. Now, if you want to prevent yourself from making some of the more egregious mistakes in worship leading, I've got something for you. Down in the description below is a link to a free training called 5 Tips to Instantly Improve Your Worship Leading. In that training, I will share with you 5 things that you can do before this Sunday and on this Sunday to make sure that you lead an engaging time of worship with confidence, hopefully with as few worship fails as possible, ideally 0. So check that training out down in the description below and level up your worship leading. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me. Until I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.